This stuff may be pretty, but look at it. The defensive worked well from Grower Solution, but this is something you have to contend with. Vines growing up in it, weeds growing at the bottom, but overall it held up really well.
Well, hello everybody, it's Danny and Wanda back from Deepsouth Homestead. Guys, we're at Pecan Grove today. Today is the first, not the first cool day we've had, but the first cool morning in a long time. Still gonna get hot during the day though. We're out here early this morning. The cornfield we had here, the corn stalks were like 4 inches thick on the ground because they were such tall, big stalks this year. It was such a great year for corn for us. We had a fantastic year. We taken and let it lay and rot for a while after we bush hogged it. We really like using the disc type turn plow because the stalks and everything, when we come to them, it literally just cuts them. It's not like a moldboard plow. A moldboard plow just rolls everything over. This actually cuts everything in its path and rolls it over. That's one reason we prefer, this type of plow. And this particular plow was my father's. He had it when he was a younger man, and I've since got it. I've let people borrow it, and they broke it, and I've had to have it fixed. But it's one of them things, you know, it's old equipment, and you have to, it still works. I mean, you don't want to get rid of it because it still works. But we've taken that now. What we're doing is we're flipping, I'm going down around 12 to 16 inches deep down to the clay. And I'm running right along the edge of the clay, flipping the topsoil over on top of the corn stalks. Now, it doesn't cover every one of them up, but it covers most of them up. And it puts good organic matter back deep under the ground. Now, what I plan on doing is coming back in here in probably a month or so and reapplying the lime. If y'all watched us last year, we had a soil analysis done on this. And my soil test recommended that we put half of the lime out the first year and half of the lime the second year, because it called for 2 tons, 1.5 to 2 tons per acre to get it back up to a 6.8 pH for a cornfield or a vegetable garden. So we'll be coming in and we'll be liming it really, really heavy again with the right amount of lime. Then we will disc it all in, and after we disc it, we will run over it with the section harrow, and we will level it all back out really good, and then we will end up seeding it probably with broadleaf mustard. Now, we haven't had any problem with nematodes yet, but why wait till you have a problem? When you use broadleaf mustards in a place and you let them grow up really big and deep, and then in the spring you mow them down and then you turn them under within a few hours, really, it puts out a chemical in the soil that prevents the nematodes from ever really getting a good foothold. Now, that is what we plan on doing, and y'all probably noticed the way I did it. I throwed both outside edges of the field out, and I ended up with a very deep furrow in the center of the field. That was on purpose because we've had such a dry summer this year that any rain accumulation we get, I want that to have a pond all the way down through the middle of it, so that it can soak back underground and soak back out into the soil. When I come back with my disc, I will set my front blades on my disc at a very sharp angle, and I will run down each side of it and throw the dirt back into the middle of it, and it'll be back a level field again. And it will be watered deep under the soil. And probably before I garden this coming year here, I'm probably going to go back and even subsoil it to break that pan. Now that I've got the dirt broke down to the pan, the secret to a successful garden in the soil out there like that is to break that pan. You want it where the moisture from down can come up, and you want it where the moisture from the top can go down. You don't end up with a mud hole in your garden. And also you want it where your roots can get down and get minerals that's been locked up in the subsoil. So there's a lot to doing this. Now, you'll notice around the edges, we have the deer fencing around the edges. This came from Grower Solutions. It done a fantastic job this year. We had no problems with deer getting into our garden this year. We had a few issues with it. I'm not going to lie about it. Vines and weeds wanted to grow up on it because you can't really get up too close to it with a lawnmower without running the risk of maybe catching the netting or something. Now, we could have sprayed it with vinegar or something like that, but we did not do that. Secondly, right at probably the last month of our drying of our corn, the raccoons figured out they could climb over it. Now, they didn't try to chew a hole through it. There's no holes chewed in it nowhere. They didn't try to go under it because the way we put it down, we laid it out on the ground flat at the bottom so they'd be standing on it when they tried to, go through it and go under it. They'd be standing on it. That worked out really well. The only problem we had was about a month before it matured all the way to being completely dry, they figured out how to climb it. And they climbed over the top of it and would just drop to the inside, and they would eat and eat and eat, and then they would go climb back over. And the weight of the raccoon, all I had it held up with was zip ties on those metal poles. Well, they pulled it down on the metal poles, and they eventually figured out that once they got it pulled down, they could just go over it pretty easy. And I ended up eradicating several raccoons because of that out of the field here, which we needed to do anyway. But even with that, the deer would come along the outside edges of it, but they never really came in it. So we're glad about that, and we will use it again. Now when I plowed, we had to take it up and roll it back to the sides. Now one other thing we did do, or I didn't do it, Ms. Wanda and Ms. Jennifer did it. They came back and took garden staples like you put down ground fabric with, and they went down the edges in between those posts and they drove them in the ground on that deer fencing to help hold it down. And that's probably why nothing really went under it, to be honest with you. Okay, I know a lot of y'all is going to ask the question, if you're going to line this like that, what about the blueberries that's out there? Well, the blueberries that's out there, we have a plan this year. We're going to probably, somewhere else on the property, we're going to dig a bunch of holes with the bucket on the tractor, and I'm going to come over here and just dig down and scoop up the tree, the dirt and everything, and take it and go set it in holes in the ground on the property. And we're going to get those blueberries out of the garden area right here. That was a poor design to start with, whoever put them in there. And we're going to try to transplant them in the dead of winter and see if we can't keep from losing them that way. And that way we'll have the whole garden open and free. We won't have to worry about the blueberries or anything to that nature. So that, maybe that'll answer that question I know is going to be asked. All I can say, my friends, is stay with us here at Deepsouth Homestead as we show you what we're doing both at Deepsouth Homestead and at Pecan Grove. We're showing a little bit of both when it comes to gardening, and we'll show you the progress as we go along and how we tend our land. I know lots of people is going to talk about no-till, no-till. Well, when you've got mat on the top of the ground like that, my Cub tractor this coming year, if I go to plant with my planter, that stuff's just going to pile up in front of the planter, and I would not be able to plant. So we have to turn it under, and it becomes good organic material under the soil. So stay with us, and we'll show you the progress in the near future. Thank you guys from Deepsouth Homestead.